Hello everyone and welcome back to the next video in this series. In this video we're going to explore the concept of classes in programming. We're going to do so again with two examples. One, if it's something in real life, which is the car that I'm showing you. And for the second example, we're going to be looking at a game, specifically World of Warcraft, because that's, I think, the best way to make the concept understandable and relatable as well. And then we're gonna end up actually coding the warrior class in World of Warcraft in Java, which should be pretty fun. So as we mentioned before, a lot of programming is associated with our brains and how we actually do things as humans. Even though we don't fully understand the brain, we do understand some of the functionality that it has. One of the things that we do subconsciously is that when we actually look at the outside world through our eyes, we associate everything as objects. So we look at a bed, we look at a lamp, and in our example, we look at a car, and just by looking at it, we immediately know it's a car. And how do we know? How do we know that? We subconsciously were associating things that we see with a car specifically and not with anything else. Or for example, it's not a tree, it's a car. So for example, the fact that it has four wheels, or the fact that it has a steering wheel, or the general shape, these all tell us that this is a car. And with it, there are certain things that are specific to cars. The car would have certain attributes, right? Like, for example, its color, or its brand, or its name, right? And then not only that, it also has certain functionality. Like, for example, you can accelerate with a car. You can go from point A to point B. Right? Or you can brake. So all this functionality is for a car. So you put all of these together when you actually look at a car, and you're able to identify the object and you're able to utilize it. We call this a class in programming. So a class really is a mixture of attributes and functionality in the real world when we look at it, right? And in programming, it's a mixture of variables and functions. So we kind of have different objects, and for each object we have a bunch of attributes which are specific to that object and a bunch of functionality which is specific to that object. So now we kind of understand what a class is, but to be able to better understand this, let me jump into World of Warcraft and showcase something to you. Alright, so here we are, we have World of Warcraft open, and what I'm going to do right now is create a character. So if you haven't played World of Warcraft before, that's completely fine. The point is that you create an avatar for yourself, you create a character for yourself, and then you are able to enter into this world and you can get professions, you can kill stuff, you level up, you get stronger, and you do more and more things that you want to do. What I want to showcase here is the create character screen that is used in World of Warcraft. So as you can see here, I have chosen the human race, and over here I'm brought to a screen where I can choose whether I want to be male or female. And then I come down here where I choose what I want to be. I can be a warrior, and I can be a hunter. And in World of Warcraft, these are called classes. So I can be the hunter class, I can be the mage class, or I can be a monk, death knight. So I choose a class, and it's interesting that they're using the same name that we actually use in programming, so it makes it a lot easier to explain. So I'm going to be, I decide I want to be a warrior. So I then go to customize, and now I can choose a name for my character. So I'm just going to call it Sip and Code. Hopefully it's available. Yeah, it looks like it is. And then after you put a name for your character, you can kind of customize how it looks. So maybe I'll change my hair color to orange, and let me change my hairstyle to barbarian. And then at this point I can press next and I can create my character. So I'm just going to click finish, and I'm going to enter the world. So you can see that my character is named the name Sip and Code, and my class is warrior. So what does it mean that I became a warrior class? It really basically means that I can use certain weapons. I have certain abilities that are specific to warriors. So if I show you all my abilities here, like for example, slam and charge and shield slam and everything, these are all associated to a warrior. Whereas if I was a mage, I would be using magic, right? So as a warrior, I have certain abilities that I can use, and all the warrior classes are the same. They can use the same abilities. However, what's different is my attributes, right? So for example, my hair color is orange and I have a beard and I'm a male, whereas you could create a warrior on your game. You would again have the same abilities as I do. You would have the same attributes, but you could look different. You could have a different hair color. You could have your name would be different, right? Or your health could be different once you level up. So we're both the warrior class, but we can have, again, different attributes. Now, the other thing I want to put some emphasis on is that since I've created a warrior class and you've also created a warrior class in your game, it means that everyone can create a warrior class. So there needs to be the ability to create a copy of a warrior class, but change the attributes of it to make it specific to the person, right? So, for example, they should be able to change the name of the character, but they shouldn't be able to change the base abilities of warriors, if that makes sense. So there needs to be the ability to create copies of the warrior class just like they do it in the game, so that everyone can create a warrior and then customize it. So I hope that makes sense. Let's go and try to actually code the warrior class. Before I do that, I want to point some things out. So as you can see, we have my name here, sip and code, my level. We have our health here, right? In the bottom, we see something called rage, and you actually generate rage by attacking other enemies. So when I attack, you can see my rage goes up by a certain amount, and when I have enough rage, I can use the abilities that I have down here. Okay, so let's keep that in mind while we go and try to code it. There's a final thing I want to cover in this section, and that is the subject of public and private, which we've been seeing a lot as we've been working. So we've been seeing public in the code that we've been writing, and I've been telling you that we don't know exactly what this is, and I want to talk about it right now. So when you have a Tesla and you buy it and you go inside it, you want to be able to control the Tesla with the controls that you have inside the car, right? So when you put your foot down on the pedal, you want it to go forward. When you move the steering wheel, you want it to go left and right, and etc., right? But you don't want someone from the outside of the Tesla to be able to hack into the system and be able to control how fast the car is going or which way the car is going. You only want to be able to control the Tesla with the controls of the car being controlled by you, not by something outside of it, because that would just cause chaos and it would be considered hacking, right? It's the same thing with programming. You want to be able to tell who can control the class or who can control the variables. Do you want it to be public and everyone can change it, or do you want it to be private and only specific functions or specific people can change it? So when you say something is public, that means everyone can access. But when you make something private, you're basically saying you want only specific people, only specific functions to change it. Okay, so keep that in mind when we're going forward, and I'll try to explain as we go forward why we're making something public and why we're making it private. But if you just keep this Tesla analogy in your head, it'll make a lot more sense to you. All right, so let's write the pseudocode for the warrior class that we just looked at in World of Warcraft. So we want to allow people to create copies of the warrior class. So therefore, we'll make it public class warrior. And we're going to use the same exact name that they're using in World of Warcraft. And this is the general formula. I didn't give a formula for it because it's just so simple. You just write public class and then the name of the class. And then you open bracer and close bracer at the end of the class. I'll just put it down here. We'll move it if we need to. Now, what attributes did our warrior class have? Well, it had the name, right? In my case, it was called sip and code. So we'll say name, which is a string. What else can we think of? We had our maximum health, right? We had our current health. We had our rage. What else can we think of? We had hair color, for example. And we can think of much more. Let's just stick with what we have here. And then we had some certain functions that we could do, right? So for example, we can move. So let's call these, let me put a dashed line here. So these are attributes. Now let's look at some functions. So we can move. Instead of move, let's make it more specific. We can run. Okay. We can do a basic attack. We can use that ability called slam. We could jump. And then we could also take damage. And there you have it. We have the pseudocode for the warrior class. So if we can, we also need one thing that I forgot to put here. We need a way to create a copy. So we need a way for someone to take our warrior class, create a copy of it, give it their own name, their own hair color, and whatever that they want, and then create a copy of the warrior class. So let's jump into IntelliJ and actually do this. All right, so let's actually get into coding. Today we're going to do a bunch of new stuff, so it should be pretty exciting. So I've made a new project. You can do the same as well. And I actually called it World of Warcraft because we're going to build on this as we go. And we can see that we can actually create a lot of stuff that we see in some of the more popular games with the most basic code. So it should be cool to actually build something that is a bit more relatable for some. So for the first time today, we're going to actually create a new class. And the way you do it, you usually associate a new class with a new file. So we're going to right click on this when you open the project. So if you click on this World of Warcraft, if you remember from the first lessons, and then you click on source, you can come here, click on this com.company, whatever you call your package name, and we can go to new and then right click new Java class. So you click on Java class and then you give it a name. Usually you have to give it the exact same name as your class. And it's the standard that the first letter of every class, it will be in caps. So if you remember with variables, the first letter is always lowercase, but with classes, it's always uppercase. So you're going to call it warrior because that's what we're designing now. And there you go. So it creates a new file for you. You can see it on the left side of your window. And then it gives it the name that you gave it. And then it also creates that public class warrior with open bracer, close bracer that we talked about for you. So now you just need to fill it in. Again, we said this is public because we want everyone to be able to use this class and create copies of it. So in case of World of Warcraft, we want anyone who logs into the game to be able to create a copy of a warrior and then customize it. So let's do a bunch of the variables that we talked about. So let's give it the string name in my case, and we want this to be private, right? We don't want anyone to be able to change this name other than us when we're actually creating the character. So we make it private. What else do we have? We have the, again, we want this to be private, the health of our character. And we're going to say max health. And we also want to change the current health of our character to private because we don't want anyone to change the health of our character manually by hacking into our system. We only want this to change whenever we take damage, for example, and I'll explain how we do that in a second. We will have a integer for rage. We will have a string, for example, for hair color. And you can add as many attributes as you want here. So maybe I'll add something for sex as well. And we'll leave it at that. Now, we need a way to allow everyone to create a copy of the warrior class. And the way you do that is first you make it public. It's a function to create a copy. There is one difference here with the create copy class function, which is different from all the other functions that we talked about. You don't actually need a return type. You may just write the same name as your class, and then you do open bracer, close bracer, open parentheses and close parentheses. This is just the way the Java language works. So instead of having, usually we had the return type and then the name of the function. But now we don't actually have a return type. We just, the return type and the name of the function is the same thing. It's just warrior. It has to be the exact same as the name of your class. Now, when someone's creating a copy of the warrior class, when I was doing it in the create character window, what was I able to change? I was able to give it the name that I wanted, right? So my name. What else? I could choose the hair color. So my hair color. And then I could choose what sex I want it to be. But I couldn't choose how much health I have or how much rage I have, right? That was already set by the game. So over here, I'm just going to open bracer, close bracer. Now what I want to do is whatever the input that I have given to the game, I want to associate it with the warrior class that we have here. And the way you do that is you say name equals my name. Okay, so the name of my warrior class is going to be the name that I give to it. Sometimes instead of writing name, they can write this.name. I just want you to know that this is something that you'll see, and what this means, it means this warrior class that you're referencing. We're talking about this warrior, but you could also not put it here as well if you want. It's totally up to you. So name, my name, hair color equals my hair color. And then the sex of the warrior is the one that I chose. Okay, but how about max health, current health, and rage? So let's go look at the game again and see what that is. It's automatically set up for us. So let's go take a look at that. So when we look at the game, you can see in the top left that my max health is 161, and my current health is also 161, and my rage is 0, and my max rage is 100, right? So I didn't get to choose these values. The code chose it for me, so that's the same thing we're going to do in our code. So let's go back to our code. So we're going to say the max health is 171. My current health is also 171. It's the same as my max health. So I can either write 171 or I can just say equals max health. And my rage is 0. And I missed a variable because we need max rage as well, right? Because that was 100. So I'm going to add that here. So I'm going to say max rage equals 100. And I think we are done at this point. So we have now, if someone uses this function, they can create a new warrior. And I'll show you this in a second. So I'm going to create a function. So if we go back to the World of Warcraft. I want to show you something here. So if you see in the game, you can always see my max health, how much rage I have, my name, and all of that stuff, right? Since we don't have graphics in Java right now, we're not using any graphics. What I'm going to do is we're going to write a function to print all of our stats on the screen so we can see them. So let's make a function. Let's make it public because we want everyone to be able to see our stats. We're going to make it return a string, and we're going to call it print stats. Okay, and all this function is going to do is it's going to print our name and everything like that. And this is something you haven't seen before, so let's try it out. We're going to say our name, and then we're going to say our name is, again, we're writing a string in between quotations. And if I want to show the variable on the screen with the name, I can write plus my name. So what this will do, it'll print this string name, and then it'll add this variable name right next to it. And I can do the same thing, and I'm going to copy paste this. And then I want to print my, let's say my max health is, I want to show that what my max health is as well. And then I can do the same thing for all the variables that I saw there. So I'm just going to do that real quickly, and then we'll continue. All right, so here we go. I made this function a void because we're printing stuff on the screen. We're not actually returning a string. And then I basically just added everything that all the different attributes that we have and printing them on the screen. You can do the same as well if you want. Now let's try to test whatever we wrote here. Let's see if we can actually create a copy of the warrior and customize it by giving it different things in the create copy function. So let's go into the main function. So you can change into the main that you have here. You can either double click here, or you should have it open on the tabs here. So remember how we said we can create the, we can have different variable types, and we talked about int float. Whenever you actually create a class, you can actually use it as a type as well. So I'm going to write warrior, and then I'm going to give it a name. So here, my type is a warrior. The name of the variable I'm going to give it is my warrior. And then the new thing that we're going to learn is you have to write new, and then you write warrior, because you're creating a new warrior just like in the game, right? Where you're creating a new character, you're choosing a new warrior, and then you write warrior, which is the name of that function that we wrote together. And then we open parentheses, close parentheses, and here is the variables that we need to give it our name. So I'm going to give it the name in quotations, sip and code. And then we need to give it the hair color that you want. I'm going to give it black. And then I want to choose a sex for my character, and I'm going to make it male, for example. Now I'm going to close it. And now let's do my warrior. Now, if you want to use a function that you wrote in your class, the way you do it is you say my warrior, which is the name of your variable, and then you put a dot, and you can access everything that you have in the warrior class. And you can see IntelliJ helps you load everything up. And so you want to use the print stats function of your warrior class. So I'm going to you can just type this in. So what this is going to do is when you say my warrior.print stats, it's going to go into your warrior class. It's going to look for the print stats function, and it's going to run it. Since it's public, we can use it. If I make this private, just want to show you this. So if I make this private, it means no one other than inside the warrior can use this function. So if I come to main, since main is trying to use this function, it's going to be red. But if I make it public, it means that it's okay. Someone else can actually use this function. So it gets fixed. So if I run this program, I should see my name and everything. So let's run this. Now check this out. So it created a new character for us, sip and code, with the right sex, with the hair color that we chose. but we didn't give it any of these values, right? Max health, current health, or anything like that, but those are all set as well. So we did exactly what World of Warcraft did when we clicked on the create character. It created this character for us. It gave it the name, it gave it the health, and the hair color that we wanted. So we pretty much did the exact same thing here. Now we can add some more functions as well. So for example, let's do a function for taking damage. So again, we're going to make it a void because we don't want to add a return value. I'll show you why in a second. I'm going to call it take damage. And let me go back into the game and let's check how that works. So if I go and attack something right here, let's go attack this wolf. And let me move this 1 second. So I'm going to put my HP bar right here and let me attack this wolf. And you can see that I'm taking 3 damage, right? And my HP bar is going lower and lower. My current health is going lower each time he hits me by 3. So what does this function take? The amount of damage. So damage taken. And what is the result? Our current health needs to get subtracted by 3. So our current health needs to get subtracted by 3. Right? So for example, if we have 171 health and we take 3 damage, it should become 171 minus 3, which is 168, and then we assign it to the variable of current health. Not minus 3, sorry. It's my bad. The amount of damage taken. Right? So this is all that needs to happen whenever we take damage. So when we made this private, it means no one can directly come and change current health. So if I come into main, I cannot access this current health variable, but I can call this take damage function. So let's try it right now. So let's create our warrior. Let's print its stats. And then let's do, I'm just going to create a line so it's easier to see. So let me do print. We see a wolf. I'm just writing this so it's easier for us to see what's happening on the screen. And then we're going to write my warrior dot, because we want to actually access a function. We're going to do take damage, and then we're going to take 3 damage. Okay. Now if I print the stats of our warrior again, our current health should be 168. So let me print it again, and then let's run our application. So over here, when we first created our warrior, we're at full health. As you can see here. Now we see a wolf. We took some damage. Now look at our current health. It's 168. Right? So we took 3 damage. If I do another 3 damage, so if the wolf attacks us 2 times in a row, we should get 171 minus 6, which should be 165. So let's run our application. We can see here that after we see a wolf, we took damage, and now our current health is 165. Okay, so if we were able to draw a user interface, we would be able to exactly mimic what's happening in the game. I hope that this was clear enough and you saw what the warrior class is. We can keep adding to this and giving it more and more functions, and we're going to do that as we go along. I think this video is already, there's a lot of new concepts that have been thrown at you, so I'm going to let that sink in, and we're going to add more on top of that in a later video. The challenge that I have for you now is that we had the target self-checkout that we did in the previous section. See if you can actually now create a class called target self-checkout. So try to create a class called target self-checkout, and then see if you can actually bring in those functions that we had and those variables that we had before into a class, and then use that class to calculate the total amount owed by someone. See if you can figure that out, and then I'll cover it in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.